In this lesson, we're going to go over how you apply materials and UVW IDs to your actual project. So right here, this is the house that I have created. This is something that I made in a few hours, a few meaning maybe about 8, so about a day. It took me about a day to build this. I'm going to show you everything that I have here. I'm using 3ds Max 2015, and you can see the layout looks a little bit different here. I have a lot of stuff over here that I don't even need. So I'm going to go through and close some of these menus because they don't need to be seen. I don't need this, and I don't need that. So right here, this is your manage layers. So if you click on this button here, manage layers, this is what will come out. Now, in version 2014 and below, you cannot dock your layers like this. This is something they added in 2015, but it still works the same way. So I've actually have a different layers in here, and I just want to turn things on and off just to show you what I have here. So I have 3 stories here. So let's see, I go to my roof. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go to my roof, and I'm just going to look down into here. I have a few items in here. I have a few rooms. This one is not finished yet. You can see that there's no entrance to this room here. So I'm actually going to go through and add that in there. If I go to my 3rd floor, which this is, I'm going to unfreeze this. So now I can select everything. And I'm just going to copy this over. Now, the way I've been doing all of this with different floors and different levels, I've been using user grids. So this is something that I just learned yesterday, to be honest. I have found some grids in here that you can use to actually use to your advantage here. So I turn these on under my default layer. You can see when I click on these are called user grids. So what these basically do is, now normally when you create something, you create it on the floor. So let's say I make a box here. It's going to be made on the floor where the actual grid is. So if I want to change the elevation of the grid, let's say I want to make items just on the 3rd floor itself, what I can do is I can pick the little grid here that's at the same elevation of my 3rd level, right click on it, activate grid. And now what it did was it replaced the grid that's on the bottom and made this the active grid. So now when I make a box, it's going to be made right here instead of below. So this is a really, really interesting way of actually changing where your items are created and how they're created. So how do I get this grid? Let's see. I'm going to turn it back off and activate the home grid again. In order to get grids, you have to go into helpers, under standard, and grid. So this little icon here, and it'll draw out a grid for you, and you can put it at any elevation you want. You can even rotate it if you want it vertical. And you can set this as an active grid. So now when I go and create objects in here, go to standard box, it's going to create the objects based on this grid. So this is a really very, very useful tool. Very useful. I highly recommend using it. So again, what you want to turn it off, just click on it, right click, activate home grid, and now it's off. So I'm just going to reactivate this grid here, and I'm going to move my door over. I'm going to copy this over to this side because I'm missing doors. And I want to make sure I'm on my 3rd floor level. I'm selecting this layer. So that's what this little blue icon does. It selects the layer. So anytime I create a new object, it's going to create it on this layer. Now, because this is already on this layer, if I toggle this on and off, you see that it's already on this layer. Even if I create it, even if I copied it, it's still going to be on this layer. So I'm going to turn on my snapping tool, and I'm just going to drag this over here, make a copy, I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees and put this where I want it to go. So something like that. So now I actually have a door in here. There we go, like so. So that's my third level. I'm going to unhide the rest of this stuff. I'm going to unfreeze everything just so you can see. Everything is kind of a different color. I had everything frozen, which is why it was in gray here. Hide the third layer. I'm going to turn off this grid so you can see through it. I'm actually going to get rid of all the grids. There we go. So this is my second level. I have a few rooms in here, a few windows. I even have a window inside. I have a door leading to the outside for this balcony here. And then I have a little spiral staircase going down. Kind of cool. And for my first floor, hide that, I have some labels here. I've actually put some labels for each room in here. I have my entrance here. I have a dining room, a study, a little closet that goes underneath the staircase, which is kind of cool. So it goes underneath the staircase. I have a little garage here. And of course I have the outside area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on how to add materials to this first level here. Because we have a lot of interesting walls and doors in here, and we want to add some life to this. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to save this as a different file. So I need to find my location. I'm using various versions of Max, so I have different locations where I save my files. And for this instance, I'm going to save this right on my desktop so it's easy to find. So I'm going to iterate this file. So instead of saving it as the file it is right now, I'm going to hit this little plus sign and it's going to iterate the file, which means it's going to save the file, but it's going to add a little number on the end of it. So now as you see, house project model project 004. So it kind of made the number go in sequence. So I'm going to open my material editor here, and instead of using the compact editor, I'm now going to switch to the Slate Editor because this is what I like to use. This is the newer editor, and it's very useful. And you can see from the last tutorial, my actual test library actually carried over, so I still have that in here. So I'm going to show you how to use the default materials that are already in MentalRay. So for MentalRay, in a previous lesson, we talked about the Autodesk Material Library. We're going to stick here. We're going to stay right here, and we're going to use some of these materials in here. So, for starters, let's try out adding some materials to this door here. Let's say I want a good door texture, something like a hardwood or something. Now, I want my doors and my frames to be different colors. So by default, a lot of these templates, these objects in Max, they already have material IDs already assigned to them. So we can actually go through here and find out what they are. So non-destructive way, if I go and add an edit poly modifier on the top of this and go to polygon mode, and I'm going to scroll down to polygon material IDs, and I want to use select 1. So this whole ID right here is one ID. Select 2, that's the second ID. Select 3, there's that ID. So the frame is number 4. So I know I really only want 2 different IDs on this, but there are 4 IDs attached to this door. So we're gonna run with this. Let's say I want to make these glass, and now I have the wooden door. Then I'll have something like a white frame. So I'm going to go into my material editor here, and we're going to grab a multi-sub object material. So I'm going to scroll all the way back up here. So you can see when you're using the Slate Editor, your material map browser is always going to be on the left side here. So you never have to keep clicking the window to open it up. It's already going to be open up. So I'm going to go under Standard, and I'm going to grab a multi-sub object material. I'm just going to drag and drop it onto the little layout here. So if I double click on this, you'll see that now this is more familiar over this side. So once you click on a material, it'll populate on the right, so you can go through and change all the parameters. Now right now I don't have anything plugged into this, but I know that I want 4 material IDs, so 4 different materials. You can see that updates here and here. And right now I have nothing plugged into these channels. So let's say I want to use hardwood. So if I click on this material, you'll see that's what it looks like here. I can change what it's going to be used for. I can change whether it's glossy, or is it satin, semi-glossy. So I can change all of these parameters in here. You can see this updates here. You have a bunch of different parameters in here. You have an ambient occlusion that's built into the material, which is pretty cool. Let's try something different. Let's actually go down to wood over here. And I'm going to pick this wood here. And I'm just going to darken this up a little bit. So now I want to apply this to my actual door. So first off, I'm going to apply this multi-sub object to the door. So if I click on this little circle here, it's going to drag out an arrow, a little line. If I drag this to my door, now it's assigned. Now you can also do right here, go to assign material to selection. That's another way you can do it. So I'm going to drag this and put this in the first slot. You see that the frame actually updates here. So this is going to be my wood frame. You can see all the maps that are associated with it. So you have bitmaps here, and this is what it actually looks like. So this is what's really cool about the Slate Material Editor. You have everything visible and open all in one place. So it has my diffuse maps, and it has my it looks like a bump map here in this channel. So if I go back here and I pull this down here, you can see that this is plugged into the bump, and this is plugged into generic image. So I can put any image I want in here if I want to change this up. But I'm just going to leave it as is because I think this is fine. So let's say I want to add another texture to this. Let's say something like glass. I just want to collapse some of these just so I have a little bit more space. So I'm going to name this doors. Let's say front door. Whoops, spelled that wrong. Front door. And I'm just going to name this wood so I know that's what it is in that map channel. And next up, I want to use, let's say, glass. Let's use something like a clear blue glass. And I want to apply this to channel 3. So now I can see right through my door now, it's applied the glass to it. Now, map channel 2 was also where I want the wood to be. So I'm also going to place it in there. So now it affects the wood on the opposite side now. And I still need one more for my actual frame here because it's still black. So see, this is what's really cool about having your Slate Editor, because I can apply multiple materials to different slots right on the fly. I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth through the compact editor up and down, up and down. Everything is all visible to me all at once. So I'm going to collapse that so it's not that big. See, I can save space by doing this way. So next up, I want to have, let's say, something like a vinyl material. Or maybe plastic will work, or some kind of finish, or maybe even concrete. Doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna put a standard material in here, and just so I can mix up the materials. And I'm gonna leave this something like a off-white, so not pure white. It's gonna be a little bit off-white, something like that, and plug that into 4. You'll see that the frame actually changes now. So now I have a good reference for my door materials. So if I were to go and select this door here, bring up Material Editor and apply this to this door, now it all updates. So now I have a consistent pattern for this door, consistent color scheme, and I can do the same for this door. This is actually a sliding door. So the other two were double doors, pivot doors. These are sliding doors, but still the map channels are identical. So it doesn't matter which door I apply it to, it's still going to be applied the same way. Now, for the inner doors here, I don't want this to be a glass panel here. So I'm going to name this to door glass, just so I know the difference. And I want to make another multi-sub object. So all I have to do if I want to copy this is hold shift, click and drag. And now I've made a copy of this. So now this is a little bit confusing because you see all of my lines are crossing over now. So I'm going to apply this material. I'm going to name this door underscore wood. So I know it's a wood door. And instead of the actual glass being here, I want to make all of this wood. So what I can do is drag this line from here and replace where the actual glass is. And now all of this is wood. So all I have is wood, 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 and frame. So I'm actually going to name that wood, 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 and frame. Now go back to the other one, name that wood, wood, glass, and frame, like so. So now I'm going to take this new material that I just made with all the little extensions connected to it and assign it to this door. So now the little panel here is not going to be glass, it's going to be solid wood. And that's exactly what I want to see for my inner doors. So I could do the rest of the doors by drag and dropping them one by one, but I'm going to use something different. I'm actually going to use my layer manager over here to actually click on all of these. So all of these are pivot doors. So if I go through and select all of these, you'll see that it selects them in the scene. Now I don't want this one or that one, so that's one that's not selected. So it has all my doors selected in the scene. Now I can apply my material to all of these at once. Since I have them all selected here, I can just hit apply to selection, and now all of my doors get this material applied to them. So I want to do the same thing for my windows here. Um, the windows are going to have 4 different IDs on them as well. Now I want the windows to be a lighter pattern here. So instead of using this wood, I'm going to use something a little bit brighter. So I'm going to copy this again. And this time I'm going to get rid of all the extensions. So they're all gone now. So I have a brand new blank material, multi-sub object material here. Now I know that I want my frames to be white, so I'm going to apply this material so we can just see what's going on. I still want to use this white material. So I'm going to name this Windows. And I'm going to put this white material on where the frame would be. So like so. And I know I want to use this glass material again because why not? So I'm going to put it in this slot. So that's the glass. So I'm going to change that to say actual glass and not wood. So now we have the outer frame, which is white. So now we need the inner frame to be white as well. So I'm also going to drag this to 2 and 1. So now I'm getting a pretty cool effect for my windows. So let's say I want to use a different wood for this, something a little bit lighter. So I'll go back to wood, use something like beech, drag it over, put that in wood. So now it's a much lighter color. And always go through and darken up just a little bit, maybe increase the saturation. So something like that. So now I see my windows. They actually have materials on them. That's what I wanted. So instead of selecting all my windows like this, I'm going to go also over here to my layer manager, and I'm going to select all of my sliding windows. So it selects all of them that are actually over here in the first floor. And I'm going to apply this windows to it, the windows material. Just going to hit apply, close that down. Now you can see all of my windows get updated. So all the way around, windows are updated. So I noticed that I want to change this garage door to white. So I'm going to have to make an adjustment to some of the materials. So we have door glass, we have door wood. Now we're going to need another one for a garage door. So I'm going to copy this again and name this garage door. Now instead of using wood, it's all going to be the same. So for all my material IDs, it's all going to be this color here, this white color. Now I need to assign it to the door. There we go. So now I want to go through and actually put some textures on my walls here. Now the thing about this is I'm actually going to have to go through and assign material IDs. So this is what I really want to show you. Now by default the 3ds Max is going to automatically assign IDs, but it's not going to be using the IDs that I want it to use. So I'm actually going to go through and fix that myself. So with the wall selected, I'm going to go and add an edit poly on top of this. And I'm going to hit Control A to select everything. And I'm going to set ID to 1. So everything is ID 1. Now the reason I'm doing that is because it has automatically assigned random IDs to all the walls here, the inside, the outside, the top, and the bottom. I want them to be uniform. So I'm going to go to a different area for the walls, and I'm also going to use a multi-sub object material. So scroll back up, and I'm going to grab a multi-sub object material, drop it on stage, and I might actually need 10 this time. Well, we're going to see. We're just going to use a few at a time. Whoops. So I'm going to assign this to my walls here, and we're going to start changing the textures here. So I know for my inner walls, most of those are going to be white. So the majority of my walls will be white. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to name this inner white, or just white. That works because you have limited space in this little box, and I kind of want to see the whole thing. And let's see, I want to use maybe concrete, or let's see, finish, fabrics, plastic. Let's use sort of a, so I want to use kind of a wall texture, but they actually have a wall in here. Autodesk wall paint, there we go. So I'm going to use that, and that's going to be white. So now you see it turns everything white. So next up, I want to make a second channel just for the outside. And for the outside, I'm going to use brick. So I'm going to scroll down to Autodesk Material Library and look for brick. There we go. On the masonry, you have brick. So if I want to make these a little bit bigger so they're easier to see, I can right click on the little label here, go to display, and I can change the icon size. So if I want to make this like large, and I can really see a preview of what this actually looks like. So I have a lot of different choices in here that I can use. I'm just gonna go with this red brick. Now I want to make sure I go back up to the top and change this back to small icons, or icons and text, like so. So now I have this brick texture here, and I want to apply this to the wall. But I want this to be the second material ID, so 2. Now nothing happens right now because I haven't actually assigned 2 to anything over here. So that's what I'm going to have to do now. So I'm going to make sure I have show material in viewport, so when I do apply this, it'll actually show up. So now that's done. Let's go apply the second ID to this wall. So in order to do that, I need to go into polygon mode, and I need to select all the faces where I want the brick to be on. And you see I have a little gap here in my wall, but that's something that I can fix later. I just want to show you the material IDs. Now, in addition to this, I want to turn on ignore back facing so I don't accidentally select something behind the wall. So I'm just going to go all the way around here and select my walls here on the outside, like so. Go all the way around. All right, so I've gotten everything all the way around here, and I want to make all of that going to be a brick texture. So best way to do that is to assign this a second ID. So I'm going to go to set ID. I'm just going to type in 2, hit enter, let go, and now you can see that the outer walls have taken on that texture. Now I need to go and fix the UV mapping on this. So this is where the next step comes in handy. So under the maps, under the bitmap here, I want to make sure I set my map channel ID. Now I want to make my map channel ID correspond to the material ID. So since I have this at 2, I'm going to make this 2. And this is going to be 2. Alright, so now I need to go and actually apply a UVW map onto this. I'm going to change the map ID to 2. Change the mapping to box. And I want to go in here and I want to make these numbers an even amount. So something like 40 for all these. So now I'm starting to see the brick texture, but it's still a little bit too big. So I'm going to drop this down to something like 10 for each. And now I can worry about changing my tiling. So let's say 2 by 2. Looks like we're really going to have to bump this up. So let's say 10 by 10. There we go. So now we're starting to get that brick pattern going all the way around. Yep. All right, so everything's looking good so far. We got the brick pattern going around. Everything's looking good. Now, what I want to do is I want to rename this, and I'm just going to call this UVW map, and I'm just going to call this brick. So I know that this is the brick pattern from visually just looking at it. So now we've assigned 2 different material IDs. We've assigned 1 and 2. Now, the reason I wanted to go through and do this is because I want to individually set what the walls look like in each room. So let's say I go in this room here and I want to add some wallpaper. Let's go and see about doing that for the dining room. Some nice wallpaper. So I'm going to bring back up my material editor and I'm just going to make this map ID 3. So I'm going to find a good texture, I guess, wall paint or wall covering. And let's go for this white floral. Let's see what this looks like. Let's try something else. Let's try something a little bit different so it looks really different. Let's go for like a green olive. This one really doesn't have a texture on it. I'm looking for something that looks kind of like wallpaper. Maybe floral brown. Let's try that. There we go. Look at that. This one actually has a texture. This is what I was looking for. So this will actually look like wallpaper when it's applied. So first off, I want to go in these map channels and I want to set ID to 3 because it's going to be our 3rd channel. I want to select on both of these, map ID 3. All right, so I can make those a little smaller now. And I'm going to assign this to 3. So now we can go in here and apply those material IDs. So going to polygon, I'm going to select all the walls going around inside of here. And we're going to set ID to 3, hit enter, it updates. Now we actually need to put some UVW mapping coordinates to it. So add another UVW map. And set the map channel to 3 to correspond. I'm going to set the mapping to box. And we need to make sure this is actually being applied. Right now it's not. So let's tell it to show in Viewport. There we go. Now it's starting to show up there. So now we just need to fix the tiling here. So again, like before, we're going to go and make the length and the width an even number. So 20 by 20 by 20. So now we're starting to see that pattern here. So now we can go and bump up the tile here. Let's say 5 by 5. And we're starting to see that in there. A really nice pattern. So let's even bump this up a little bit more. Let's say 10 by 10. So something like that. So now it's really starting to look like wallpaper. And you can kind of stretch it out a little bit. Something like that. If I just want it to be a little bit taller. So you can go around and play with these values and get whatever you want. But now I have wallpaper in this room. So far the other walls are going to be flat white, and the outer wall is this little brick pattern. Then I have wallpaper in the dining room. Let's go and add something in the study room. But first, I'm going to rename this to dining room, or just dining for short, just so I know which room this is applied in. Now I want to go into the study room over here and do the same thing. And it looks like I forgot to add a material to this door here. So I'm going to go back to my material editor here, and I'm going to look for the doors. So we have glass, door wood, and garage door. I want to use the door wood. So I'm going to quickly apply that. So I'm going to drag this off and drop it right on. So there we go. We've got our doors here. If I open that up, you see inside a closet. Close that back. So now let's add some wallpaper in here. I'm going to go in here and add some wallpaper. So under dining, I'm going to go and add a few things in here. So first off, we can go to edit poly, and we can go to polygon tool, and we can go in here and start selecting the walls here. There's a few things that you can do with this. So I'm going to click all of these. And since we know that this is our 4th ID, I'm going to go here and assign it to 4. And now let's go back up and bring the material editor and go back to our, let's just name this first floor. So first floor walls, to be exact. So let's find a different wallpaper. Let's say Victorian, maybe. Yeah, let's try that out. So I'm just going to collapse some of these down so we have a little bit more space. Just kind of move these around like so. So I'm going to add this to 4. I'm going to show material in viewport. So make sure you see this little red next to the blue, the slash, to make sure it's applied. I'm going to click on the bitmap here and change the map channel to 4. So now we see the wallpaper is applied over here. So now the last step again is to go through and add another UVW map. And first thing, change the map channel ID to 4. Change mapping to box. Drop this down to a reasonable size, 20, 20, 20. And we need to increase the tiling a bit here. Now right now nothing's updating, and that's because I still had something selected under here. So I want to make sure I unselect everything here, go back up, make sure this is map channel 4, go back to material, make sure that is map channel 4, make sure I am actually applying this to the wall, like so. So now we kind of got the wallpaper here. Now sometimes this doesn't update. Right now mine is not updating, but it's actually applied. So I'm going to save this. And I'm just going to turn this on and off. And it looks like my map channel is actually not affecting it. You can see that it's affecting this one right here. Let's make sure I have this set on 4. Yep. Set on 4. I'm going to save this. Reset the scene. Reload the scene. And there it is. So sometimes Max gets hung up and you have to kind of restart it for it to get it to work. Because you see that all I did was restart the scene and now I see my wallpapers in there. Kind of a cool wallpaper. Kind of like that. So there's the study room. We have the dining room, and we can go through and add all of these, but I'm just going to change it up and I'm going to do a flooring instead. So I have different flooring for each area. Let's say in the hallway, I want to have wood floors, but in the study, I want to have carpet. And especially in the living room, I definitely want to have carpet. So I need to go through and divide this up a bit. Because if I look at this right now, so I'm selected on my plane 01, I'm just going to name this floor first. I need to actually divide up this layout. So I'm going to go into my top view so I can see everything. Go into wireframe. So when I select this, you can see that it's selecting big chunks and it's not selecting the individual rooms. Now this is an edible poly. This started off as a plane, and all I did was I conformed it to fit the dimensions here. So now I need to divide this up just a little bit. So to show you what this looks like without the walls, I'm just gonna hit Alt Q. This is what it looks like without the walls. So I have some segments here that are divided up, but I need to put more in here. So you could have isolation mode. I need to put a segment going straight across here. So to do that, I can go into my graphite modeling tools by toggling on this little ribbon here. That's going to take a while. There we go. Loads up. I'm going to use the Swift loop. So now I can go through here and kind of put my divisions in here. Let's divide that by here. Put that in right there. Right there. Now I need to divide this living room here, but if I go into wireframe mode, you see that I need to change the location of this vertice right here. So I'm just going to move this up a little bit, and I need to connect it all the way, going all the way across. So I'm going to right click and go to cut. So I'm going to show you that again. Right click, go to cut. I'm going to click here and click here. So now I made a cut going all the way across. So now this divides that up. And I also need to cut where the flooring is right here. So, not attach, but cut. Gonna add a line going straight across here, here, going all the way up. About right there. So now when I go back and select it, now I can select my individual rooms like so. Kitchen, bedroom, it's the living room. This is going to be the garage. So now I can go through and kind of set some material IDs right off the beginning. So let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 IDs. So right now I'm going to go through and make sure everything is set to 1, which it already is. Bring up my material editor. And again, I need to drop a multi-sub object in here. So going back up to materials on the standard, multi-sub object, drag it to the stage. I'm just going to find a different area to go in so I get out of this. And I'm just going to name this flooring first. I know it's the first floor. And I probably need about 8 IDs. So the first ID, I'm going to do all floors. And I'm going to make this all wood. So scrolling down to wood and panels, I'm going to choose boards. Okay, no, I'm not going to choose boards because we need something that looks more like floors. So let's actually go into flooring. There we go. Flooring, wood. There we go. Let's use American Cherry. And I'm just going to put that in the first slot. And we need to apply it to this. So I'm going to get out of wireframe mode so we can actually see this. And with the material selected, I'm just going to hit apply to selection. And I need to show in viewport. So now we see that it's actually applied to this. And this is going to be map ID 1. So we're going to leave it as such. Going to add a UVW map. And we're going to leave it on planar because it's just projected across one plane, one axis, which is the z-axis. So it's already set to z-axis. It's on planar. Map channel 1, which it already is. So now we're going to go and set the tiling a bit. Oh, now we can start to see flooring a little bit. So now we got this down. I'm going to drop down the tiling a little bit. Let's actually change the U and V tiling. So let's increase this number to something like 5 by 5. So now we're starting to get some floor tiles in here. There we go, something like that. We got some floor tiles in here. Not happy with the size. Just gonna change this up just a little bit and change the way this stretches. So if I want to put it on like something like 8 by 10, there we go. So now we have our major flooring tiles in here. Now we can kind of go and separate the rooms. So let's see, the dining room is going to be, or maybe the study room. Let's go to study room because we want to just go ahead and put some carpet in here. So this area, I'm going to go back to our editable poly, select just this floor, and change the ID, set it to 2. Click off of it. Make sure you're out of it. I want to make sure I rename this to, whoops, UVW, let's call this wood floor 1, because maybe I want to do a second wood floor pattern. So the study one, we don't want all black. We just don't have anything in this channel here for 2. So for 2, we're going to use something different. Carpet. Perfect. So let's say we'll use maybe something like that. And we're going to put that into map channel or material channel 2. I'm going to show in the viewport. So this is what the map actually looks like. So we want to make sure that these, I'm double clicking on these to get to these, by the way. I'm going to make sure the IDs are set to 2 because that's what they correspond to. 2 and 2 and 2. All right, so everything's set to 2. Just gonna make this a little bit smaller so we can see everything. All right. So we got 2 in here. Now we need some UV coordinates for it. So I'm going to drop a UVW map, set the ID channel to 2. And we can stick with planar. And of course we need to change the sizing of this. Now again, it's not updating in the viewport, so I might have to save this and reload it again. Let's see if we have everything correct. We have it in map channel 2. We have it applying in the scene. Nothing's updating, so let's reset the scene, reload it. Still not working. Let's go investigate what it is now. So this is set to map channel 2. You can see the names right here. Right now it says no name, so I should probably go name this. I'm going to name this study or study room. All right, it looks like that's showing up now. So what I did was I went to the actual bitmap and I told it to show in viewport. So it's going to show the actual bitmap. It's going to override whatever the material settings are. So sometimes you might have to do that. And again, this still is not working. Try something different. There we go. So I went to the next option here, and now it's showing up. There we go. Now we got some carpet in here. Perfect. So now we got some carpet in the study room. Let's say in the living room we want some different carpet. I'll just rename this to study. Go back down to Editable Poly, select just these two for the living room. And I'm going to set this to 3. Go back to my material editor. Let's say we want some more carpet in here. Let's use something like navy blue. So I'm going to drag and drop that here, like so. Going to move some of this stuff out the way so we can get this over here, like so. Put that in slot 3 for material. And I'm going to make sure this is map channel 3. So 3 and 3. Gonna make sure I tell it to show the actual image so we can see what it's doing in the viewport. And gonna go back and name this. So this was the living room. Oh, there we go. The carpet is actually showing up. So now we just need to put the material, not the material, but the UVW map on it. Set that to 3. What's 3? Change the tiling, 20 by 20. And there we go. We got carpet in here. Sweet. So now we have carpet for the living room. So usually the dining room usually has wood floors anyway, so we'll leave the wood floors for the hall and the dining room. Let's say maybe the kitchen is going to have tiles. So let's change the kitchen. So I'm going to right click and rename this to living. So we know that's the living room. Go back down to Editable Poly, go to kitchen, and set this ID to 4. Get out of that. Go back to Material Editor, and we want to find some tiles. So tile for flooring. And let's use something like circular mosaic. Put that into 4. And we've already know that this is the kitchen. Move these over. There's the actual image right there. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what that's going to look like. So double click on that, change the map ID to 4. And make sure you tell it to show shaded material in viewport. So make sure you have that red on top of it. We go in there and, ooh, that's interesting. That's kind of psychedelic. So we definitely want to change the tiling for this. UVW Map, Map Channel 4, say 20 by 20. And this is not updating yet again. So, gonna have to do it again. Save, reset. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. Now it's updating. Let's see. Well, at least it was updating. Rename. It's gonna name this kitchen. Got map ID channel set to 4. Let's see if we can get this to update. Finally. And this one looks like it's going to be cantankerous. So let's go and check to see if we got everything. Got this on map ID 4. Go under editable poly. Select this. This is kitchen, map ID 4. Select off of it. Click off of it. Go back up. Because we should have this tiling about now. And it is not. And this is on map channel 4. So this is this crap that you have to deal with sometimes. Sometimes the materials they update, sometimes they don't. Um, it's kind of a trial and error thing. I'm going to change the pattern to something else. Let's see, diamond. Set up the kitchen. Oh, this one actually looks a little better. There we go. Check this out. That looks a little better. And this one is still not updating. So sometimes this can be a little bit frustrating because it doesn't always update. Let me make sure I have this on map ID 4 first. So 4, enter, 4, enter, change it up. And it looks like no matter what I do, this thing is still not giving me direct control to update it. So let's do this a different way. I'm going to go into the material itself, change the tiling from there. So I'm going to go in here. Let's see if it allows me to do it. And I'm just going to go and change some parameters in here. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so we can see both sides. Can't really tell if anything is happening. But we can see on this little image here, when you change some of these parameters, something will change. See the brightness. Oh, that's changing. And of course, we can go through here and pick whatever pattern we want. We want to select a different pattern in here. There's a bunch of different textures in here that are shipped right into 3ds Max, so have at it. But for right now, this is going to be our kitchen floor. So we got a living room, we got a kitchen, we got a study, we got the wood going around for, let's say, the bathroom and the dining room. So I hope this was helpful. There's a lot of different things you can do with material IDs. I'm not going to finish the rest of this right now. You kind of get the idea of how to go about doing this, and I look forward to seeing your projects.